A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice on a Monday night. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all really, really enjoying the England game that's on. They've just gone 2-0 up. Trent has scored after getting a very, very soft penalty earlier in the second half. But who cares about England, eh? Jared's playing. He's playing the whole 90 minutes and he hasn't been injured. So I guess that's a good thing. Of course, what else is there to talk about at the moment but transfers and the absolute shit show that we have every transfer window at West Ham United? We thought, or we hope, that with Tim Steidten coming in, now being, responsible for transfers, no interruptions or no interference, should I say, from dearly departed David Moyes, we thought that maybe things were going to be a bit different. But of course, the transfer stuff that goes on, where we've signed a player, we haven't signed a player, we're about to sign a player, the player wants more money, someone's come in with a bigger bid. The same stories go on and on and on. So I'm going to bring a guest on who knows an awful lot more about football than I will ever do. And you've seen him before, another West Ham fan. I'll bring him on in a minute. But before I do, because last week when I had a couple of guests, I didn't say hello to people in the chat. So I'm going to go through them really quickly, say hello to people, and then I'll bring my guest on. So who's first? Good evening to you. Mark, how are you? Deal for Guilherme, not collapsed now at document exchange stage and will fly to London for a medical. You see that pig that just flew over my head? That's probably more likely to... Well, look, we don't know, do we? Because there's literally the same social media channel on whatever it is, Twitter or whatever, put out two stories within minutes of each other. The first one was the deal was collapsed, gone, finished. No, it's not going to happen. And literally minutes later, the same social media channel went, the deal's back on. And it's like, what do you believe? Anyway, good evening to you, mate. Aaron, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Need some cheering up today. You come to the wrong place. England are winning 2-0. David, Brazilian source, close to club, unaware of Saudi interest. Jacob Steinberg, Talksport, usual hacks, got no clue. That's really interesting because, we got excited, didn't we? Because Romano said whatever it was he said the other day about Guilherme, and everyone went, it's happened, it's happening. And then he had to backtrack himself. And then Jacob Steinberg came out with a Saudi interest. And now that seems to have been apparently not corroborated either. What do you believe? Usual. Good evening to you. I hope you're well. Stel, your beach attire, mankin, your pudgy smugglers. With the stomach that I've got, neither, mate. A bin bag. Epic, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Infamy, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Love being part of this weekly stream. Thank you for being part of the stream. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Graham. How are you? I know the sports media have an agenda against us. I'm taking this with a pinch of salt. That's a good thing to do, mate. Anthony, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Sean. How are you? I'm very well. Bruno played last night, as did Guilherme, and Kadioglu can definitely play right back as well as left back. Interesting. That I didn't know. Epic. Daniela, there's a lot of people who think it's a steal. He's the biggest talent in Brazil right now, and people can't believe he's going to West Ham. I can't believe he's coming to West Ham. So let's hope he is coming to West Ham, and then I can believe it. But doesn't it just it winds me up? And the irony is that I said a few weeks ago, I'm not going to do any transfer shows because I don't believe in them until they're a lot closer. What did I start doing? Well, I've got no content. It's all about transfers, isn't it? Who else have we got here? Let's scroll down. Epic. Keep in mind that we no longer have David Moyes, who doesn't play youngsters. I fully expect Lopetegui to give minutes to this geezer if we get him. I look for 25 mil plus add-ons and a 20% sell-on fee. I fucking hope he's going to play him as well. I can't believe that we'll bring him in for that sort of money, and then he ends up being on the in the under 21s or on the subs bench. Good evening to you, Paddy. This would be an amazing signing with him on board. I can see the under 21s winning the cup this season. Yeah, well, the under 21s, as I sort of said, all the under 21s, the season's just gone, were all the under 18s who won the cup. It's taken them a year to gel. Let's see how they get on. But it's about experience rather than winning things. But it's nice when we win things. Some reports are saying it's still on. Good evening to you, DeCanio. I hope you're well. Good evening, Steve. How are you? People losing their minds over transfer rumours. Some so-called ITKs have their reputations shredded. Does make me laugh, that. Michael, good evening to you. You've got a question. Why are we advertising our target market not open yet so anyone can come and gazump us? Well, you've got to ask yourself who's exactly leaking all this information out. Now, I'll leave you to work it out, because it's quite interesting that these leaks are coming out thick and fast, especially, the leaks from Brazil. We've got someone over there in Brazil at the moment, haven't we? You work it out who's leaking what. It all sounds a little bit weird, to be quite honest with you. Now, apologies. I'm going to scroll down because I want to get my guest on. So do forgive me that I'm not going to cover just about every comment. Stel, Howard, good evening to you. According to Brazil Football Lissimo, Tim Steidten was seen in a restaurant with Arthur Masuaku sharing a seafood platter. So long as that's all they share and no contract negotiations, I'm good with that. Good evening to you, Charles. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, West Ham Forever. Is the deal broken or not? Because now everyone is saying it's still back on. Exactly that. As far as I'm aware, at this moment in time, the deal is still on. And papers have been exchanged, apparently, or about to be exchanged. And then the next thing is to get that young lad over to England to do a medical. Fuck it. Don't waste time. Do the medical in Brazil and send the results over by fax. That'll get it here quickly. El Dorino, thank you for all the comments on the shows earlier today, mate. Really appreciated. Andre Hernan has connections with club and player. Ask both. Deal is practically done. All agreed. Who's Andre Hernan? Probably my guest knows. I don't know, because I don't know anything about football. Greg, good evening to you. Konza stopped Bowen scoring. Oh, you're watching it, are you? I almost fell asleep, mate. Miss Smith, good evening to you. Social media frenzy, blame social media frenzy for social media frenzy. Round we go. Very true. Good evening to you, Scott. I hope you're well. Galispero to you, Keith. I hope you're well, mates. Thank you for joining. Epic. Still, latest news is we've hijacked Leverkusen's deal for Girona's Alex Garcia. These rumours are only going to intensify. That's a new one to me. I hadn't heard it. 3-0 now. Who scored? Someone tell me that Bowen scored. Probably hasn't. Aaron, just a shitty day. Came home from lunch to find my... Oh, mate. I'm really sorry to hear that. Really am. Old age caught up with her. My best pal. Really, really sorry. Look, as you know, you would know my where is he? My cat died recently, and I was really upset about that. So I'm really sorry to hear that, mate. Let's try and cheer you up. Mr. Wigram, how are you? Why do you start so late? I don't. I said I was on at 9:30, and I actually was on time. Anyway, Emmerdale's finished now, isn't it? So, Ralph, good evening to you. I'm chilled with what's going on. It's still early. Of course. There's still 12 days. What are we on? We're on the 4th. There's still 11 days before the actual window actually opens. And then the international window doesn't open until the 1st of July. There's loads of time. Absolute loads of time. Get evening to you, Ricky. Sullivan will not pay 18 million for a youngster. No, he's going to have to pay 25 million plus add-ons. When he wouldn't pay 18 million for that youngster in January. What world do we expect him to pay 25 million this summer for another youngster? Tim is just on a paid holiday. Christopher, good evening to you. I'd be happy with any signings as long as we play them in their right positions or to their strengths, unlike Elias, Skamaka, Paquetá, etc., etc. Good point. Mark Watson, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Rumour has it we haven't signed anyone yet, but remember the window is not actually open yet. It's a really good point. Okay, let's bring him on because it'll be, I've already been on 10 minutes chatting shit. So good evening to you, Dan. How are you,
Hello, mate? Yeah, I'm good.
Dan, I know people must have seen you before, but just tell everyone who you are.
Well, I used to have a football channel myself. It's kind of how we met through the West Ham channels, didn't we? Still, but I know a little about a lot where football's concerned, basically. So everyone seems to come to me when it's transfer window time, even though it's my least favourite time of year because all the ITKs go mad for their clicks and likes, don't they? It's a nightmare.
You undersell yourself, mate, because your channel was excellent, and I don't know. I've lost track of the number of times I've said to you should bring it back, or become a regular guest on this channel instead. But
I will be honest, that'll be easier. Now I've got 2 kids now, mate, so it'll be easier just to be a guest on here.
Yeah, we were chatting before we started about Dan's young kids, and I was laughing my head off because I don't have to go through that anymore.
Yeah.
Where should we start? Should we start
honestly.
with Brazil? Should we
We
start?
can do. Yeah,
let's
honestly.
Do that. So, we've heard the stories, we've heard the rumors, we've heard what's going on, what's not going on, and the deal's on, the deal's off. What's your thinking in the first place about Steidten going out to somewhere like Brazil to attract these kinds of players? What's the method? I mean, he does like, and I don't mean this in a weird way, he does like a South American or two.
Yeah. But there's a plethora of talent out there. Young talent coming through constantly. And, this lad, we were linked with Gustavo as well, weren't we? There's so many players out there, mate, that you could probably sign. They're not going to cost the same money the European talent is. This lad, although he hasn't played a lot of football, I think he's only played like 39 games. I think he's just had his first full season. So, he scored 1 goal. He's got more goals at youth level for Brazil than he has for club, which is mad in itself. So then he's just one of those where, a couple more years, he's probably going to be worth twice as much. So I think that's why he does it. I think he's always keeping an eye on South America and stuff because you just get the players a little cheaper, and we're probably going to talk about it as we go on, but we have got a lot of needs in this window and he's got to make that money go far. So I think looking at South America is wise, but it's just funny. There's like, I heard you say, like, as you were introducing like the show and everything there, and you were saying that like within a minute, the same sources were reporting something. Earlier, I see that deal had collapsed, right? One person had said that deal collapsed. Literally 4 minutes later, another person was saying, no, it's back on. And then 10 minutes later, a completely different sources saying, no, it's collapsed again. I think everybody, especially, you've made the point, the window's not open. Everybody has to take everything, even Fabrizio Romano, take everything they say with a pinch of salt. Because all they want to do is drive traffic to their websites, to their channels. I mean, like, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt.
Exactly. And I mean, apparently that, ITKs take themselves, I don't mean it's in a disrespectful way. And I know we've got our own ITKX, who are a lot of West Ham fans, they listen to religiously. They like the sort of content that he puts out, being first on the news, etc. But that's quite a reputational risk, isn't it? Because if you get it slightly wrong, you're kind of, you've got a mark against you, haven't you? And I mean, I did sort of joke at the beginning and saying, like, it's fairly obvious who's putting the leaks out if you think about it very carefully. I'm not going to name him because I don't want to get done in any way. But it's that need, isn't it? It's the world we live in with social media. It's that need to be. I
miss the transfer window how it was, mate. When like the yellow ties transfer window day outside the grounds, reporting on it like that. Now, like, you have the agents getting involved, trying to drive prices up. You see them tweeting stuff out, and they're trying to get other clubs interested by sending these tweets, and it's tiresome now. Like you've already said, it's 11 days until the window opens, and our fan base is already sitting there on Twitter, on Facebook, like, Tim Steidten this, Sullivan that, like, moaning, and it's like the window's not even, give him a chance. The window's not even open, like, it's mad.
Yeah, and this is interesting. Apparently, there was no interest from Saudi. I mean, someone obviously made that up. Someone obviously, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, because it whether it's an agent that does it or whoever it does it, it's to drive. When a player is not for sale, we always hear an agent drives interest by going to someone. Oh, my player is, there's interest in my player from Club X, and then they tweet that out or whatever, and then before you know it, when is it the two journalists trick, where if more than 2 journalists say the same thing, it's to be believed. That sort of thing, and that drives interest. And then when there's a deal on the table, of course, if an agent or the club doesn't think that they're getting enough money, they will kind of say, "Oh yeah, well, there is a Saudi money, or there is someone other
So
club."
I've got a theory. I've got a theory why it happens to us so much, and it's because we're so slow at getting deals done. And
Yeah,
so my theory is that, like, because we take so long, and it's clearly because Sullivan sat there. And he's because you know what he's like. He wants to get his money's worth. He tries to save pennies all the time. And so I think it's just a case of, like, he overstructures deals sometimes, so they take a long time to go
yeah,
through. And then as a result, I think agents and that get pissed off. So then they start making stuff up to try and make us push the deal through. But as we've seen in the past, Sullivan will not be rushed. He does business on his terms.
And the interesting thing is, Dan, there's a lot of, please don't get me wrong, I'm not sort of trying to side with Sullivan in any way, but usually when a deal goes bad, the initial reaction is bloody Sullivan. It's Sullivan. It's Sullivan. He does, and you're right. He does. He is tight. He hasn't become as rich as he is by spending money, recklessly. But
it's and I think as well as people need to understand, it's all well and good having a Tim Steidten, who is unbelievable, getting the talent through the door, highlighting these young players to sign and whatever, but it's still Sullivan that signs the check. So I think people have to remind that when they get on Tim's back as well, because I've seen a lot of, like, Steidten slander in the last week or so, and like this is the first season. Let's really be honest. This is the first full season he's really going to get a crack at the whip of doing his job properly. Because he couldn't do it unfortunately couldn't do it under Moyes. They just didn't agree. But I think with Lopetegui, he's going to sign on to this. So this is the first chance. This is the first summer we're really going to see what Tim Steidten can do. And already, before the window's even open, people are like, "Yeah, he's a fraud." And it's like, no, give him a bloody chance. Like, just because he ain't signed anyone yet, but, like, window ain't even open. It's mad.
Is he? Given what you said about Sullivan, and we know Sullivan can be careful, and look, and someone made that comment earlier about the I can't remember the young player's name in January who ended up signing for Brighton. He's coming this summer to Brighton.
He was at Nordsjælland, that player. The winger.
Say again, sorry.
He played for Nordsjælland, didn't he? The winger.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when that player came out, no one knew about him. No one sort of, we looked at his details, we looked at his stats, and we went, why are we going, and maybe that was a Steidten classic. This is a player that's going to be up and coming. And for all we know, he's another Ghanaian, isn't he?
Yeah.
Player, and he could become the next big thing, etc. But certainly Moyes wasn't going to sign off on that. But do you see someone like Sullivan going, "Oh, I don't know about this"? Will Sullivan now feel? Someone already mentioned Sullivan and Steidten get on well. Will Sullivan now be a bit more relaxed and go and do your job
for the project to work? Yeah, Sullivan has to let the football club be run differently. He has to. He's always. I'm not the biggest Sullivan fan, and so I don't want to come off like it's just Sullivan slander, but he has a particular way of doing things, and he's always been very hands-on and very involved in the transfer window. There's certain players that were Sullivan signings and things like that, and we know that he's scuppered deals in the past and whatever. But if he really wants this project to work and for the club to move forward in the transfer window and doing things differently, he has got to let Tim do what he does. He's got and basically, he's got to sit down and have these meetings with Tim. And if Tim says to him, this player 110% has to come through the door, Sullivan has to sign that check without asking questions. He just has to, because Tim's the man. Yeah, because Tim, let's be honest, Tim's the one that knows football. He knows football better than probably anyone at the club, because he's the one that's looking for the right players to sign. He's been told the positions he's got to find, and he's out there trying to do it.
Well, before we look at some other sort of targets, let's look at those positions, because the one thing we hear is Lopetegui likes a full 25-man squad. A lot of people have made really good comments of, well, why do we need 25-man squad when we're not in Europe? We've only got the league and we've only got domestic cups, etc. Does that matter though? Lopetegui's got a way of playing. Lopetegui's got a way we know he uses. He wants to use all the subs or as many subs on the bench as he possibly can. He likes rotating, for the right reasons, not just for the sake of it. So, I mean, I've been sort of tampering with this on and off over the past few weeks, and the players in the middle there are the ones that I think are dead cert. Of course, there's a question mark over Paquetá, whether he, whatever happens with him. But if it looks like he won't be sold in the summer, I think that even though the window hasn't opened, we heard today that apparently his lawyers have asked for more time to respond to the charges. They were meant to respond by today, and they've asked for an extension on that. So they're going to kick that down the road, that can down the road a few weeks. So it doesn't look like it's going to be sold, but we don't yet know if we're going to be able to have him available. The Brazilian FA have turned around and gone, well, we don't care. He's staying in the Brazilian squad. So I've included him in here. Yeah. And by the looks of things, we've been told we need 2 central defenders and a striker as a priority. We haven't been linked to that many central defenders yet, but we've been linked to a plethora of left-sided attacking players and a few strikers. Would you say that this, on this, we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if we've got the bench as well, 6, 7, that's 8 players, and that's assuming.
I actually said when the season finished, we needed 8 to 10 players. I actually said that. I can't see us getting that many because we ain't got the funds. We needed to sell someone. We needed to sell someone to buy 10. I genuinely thought Pac would be the one out the door. He was linked with City. He was linked with, I'm sure other clubs probably looked at his end of season form and thought they'd get him cheaper than the 85 as well. I genuinely thought he was going to be the player we were going to use to supplement our transfer window because it is, it's a big rebuild. It's mad the state the squad's in. It really is, and especially now we've got a manager that likes to use a full 25 because his football's more, the way we're going to play is more intense. We're going to need more energy, and Lopetegui will use substitutes to change the game. He's not. I don't want this to come off like just Moyes slander, but like Moyes had one way of doing things. He set the team up, and he rarely changed the game in game. He wasn't very good at highlighting stuff like that and changing things very often.
He just wanted his rigid system.
Yeah, and he'd always leave subs late, and he only made 1 or 2 a game, and then he'd leave them right to the end to like run the clock down. Lopetegui ain't going to do that. If you ain't playing well that first half, he'll pull you. At half time. He's that sort of manager. He'll highlight where things are going wrong. So he's going to need that full 25. But the only way I can see us fulfilling that is a couple are going to have to come up from the academy. They're just going to have to, even if they're just there to supplement the squad, learn, and then play the odd game, few minutes in the cup and whatever. But I just can't see us signing enough players with the rumored transfer, amount that we've got. It just doesn't seem enough money, not in today's game anyway. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I don't. The Paquetá thing, mate, is the biggest problem. That is the biggest problem. Is going to be the biggest problem this summer because we just don't know what's going to happen with him. It's like I read something today. He asked not to play the Bournemouth game.
Yeah,
where he got that. So I will say something about this. Right, obviously, I've watched all of the tackles back. Right, there was 5 or 6 tackles, weren't there? And they released the footage of the tackles that they've looked at and said they're dodgy. I will say the only one I thought was a little bit questionable was the Bournemouth one.
I 100% agree.
The rest of them, how can you determine whether that's him trying it on or not? They all generally look like attempts to win the ball, or he's just arrived a bit late. Some of them I actually think are soft, and they're not even yellow cards. It's mad. So like, I just don't understand how they're going to prove this. But just based on that, what they've put forward, it just seems weird, mate.
I think what West Ham United wanted, they wanted this to be a criminal offence, a criminal charge. And my understanding of the law is like, if it's a criminal charge, you've got to be 91% proof that it's done. Whereas this one, the way this is going, there's only got to be a probability of proof, so it's over 50%, 55% or something like that. And I think, what worries me is what they've got in terms of the betting patterns. How many of these accounts have been set up, just specifically for these games? How many other bets did these individuals make or this group of people make, and so on? And did they make bets on any other games? I know there was another player implicated, another Brazilian plays in Europe somewhere, but we haven't heard whether he's been charged or not. And I think what they're looking at is the probability, the betting patterns and so on. And that's the thing that kind of worries me. And if it's over 50% probability, he could be done, and
that'd be it. Like I was reading about a player that would do, he was very similar offence, and he was literally he was banned for like 10 years, and that was it, because he was at the tail end of his career anyway. So, and like if he is found guilty, and that is the case, his contract would just be terminated. We basically lose 50 million quid that we spent on him. We'd obviously reap some money back through the wages, but still, it's such a big loss, especially as we were probably going to use him to sell, to like buy and supplement his squad. Could you just pull that squad screen up again?
Yes,
still a minute. I think Zuma will go. I just can't see Zuma playing Lop's system, mate. He isn't good enough on the ball.
Yeah, I can't see him. I can see him being on the subs bench and really being used.
I can't see him being happy sitting on the bench though, because he was captain. I just think it's going to be really difficult, like that one, to try and explain that. But I think if you can get money for him, you take that money and run, because his knees are gone. Like we were laughing all season, weren't we? All of us.
Oh, mate, yeah. I mean, we were watching him in the stands, and
just so bad. Like, don't get me wrong. On his day, like when you play a team and all they're going to do is just lump it long, he'll win every header. But like we're talking about now, where this is a manager that he plays kind of a higher line. So you're going to need that pace, and he likes to pass out from the back and work, and he isn't good enough. He's got no left foot, so I just can't see. I can't see him working in the system.
On that, then, does that mean? I mean, we hear about a Gerd still wanting to go. He hasn't settled in the Premier League, and there's also Johnson as well.
Yeah.
In my head, Gerd would be an ideal type of centre back.
I actually think it's a shame, because I think Lopetegui would probably work wonders with a Gerd. But at the end, but look, if he hasn't settled in the country, then it's not fair, is it, keeping him here? Like, Scamacca didn't settle, so that was the big reason why we let him go. Moyes openly said he liked the player, he just couldn't get the best out of him, didn't want him to go, but he couldn't settle in England, so we let him go. And it's slightly different, but like we had Dawson, didn't we? He wanted to move back up north. I think it's silly to keep players around when they're unhappy. So if you can get the money back that you spent for him, and then just reinvest it in another centre back. We've been linked with a few centre backs, but the centre backs we're being linked with ain't going to come cheap. That's the issue. So like we're going to have to sell one centre back at least. Yeah.
And what about sort of Johnson? Johnson, I know he's kind of like, we heard the stories. He wants about 60 grand a week. West Ham won't pay it. I think the massive irony is we end up having to get another right back to compete with Soufal in that spot. And the money we pay and plus the wages we give him, we might as well have paid it to Johnson.
Yeah, but the other side of the argument for that for me is we would go out and get a starting right back. We wouldn't go and get a backup. So then if you're going to pay a bit more money for them, you're going to pay the wages, it's worth it. I don't think Johnson is good enough to play in the Premier League. I just don't think he's Premier League. Like, I don't think he's a Premier League fullback.
Do you think he won't go to another Premier League club? I mean,
he will. I reckon he'll end up at somewhere like Palace. That's where I think he'll go. And but he won't start because they've got good fullbacks already. They've got Mitchell, and they signed that fella from Basel, didn't they, in January? So they've got their fullbacks kind of sorted.
So he'll be back up with them.
Yeah, so he'll just be a backup there. But I think he'll end up somewhere like that. I just don't. I think I love Soufal. I really, really like Soufal, but he cannot handle tricky, pacey wingers, and the Premier League's full of them. So we need to go and get a right back that can handle it.
So am I being bad for not putting Soufal and the likes of, say, Souček or Ward-Prowse in that starting lineup?
No, I don't think you are, mate. I think because you know what it is. It's like you could have, if Moyes was still manager, you could quite easily put him in there. But we're going to be playing a different. We're going to be playing completely different. Like I see all this stuff when Lopetegui was appointed. The Spanish Moyes and all this, but like all that did, it just smacked of people not doing their research. He plays nothing like that. He plays more of a high. He plays a higher line. It's more of a mid block. He never retreats into his own box unless he has to when he's defending. He's fast counter attack. He likes to pass in triangles. It's always got to be someone available. If you watch any of these teams, they're brilliant at pressing the ball and winning second balls. Like, and that's something we ain't done for years. We never win second balls. So like, the team's gonna have to go through something. I've said to you for ages, and we never look fit. Every season we never look fit. This team's going to need to be fit to play this Lopetegui system because he's going to press. They've got to win second balls. You know, like it's not going to be a case like sitting in and hope for the best, getting on the counter attack. It's going to be completely different. And
so he's going to need athletes in the team, isn't he? He's going to need those who are really athletic.
Which is why the players that you've put in there, I think, are probably nailed on. Like, but Bowen's probably got the best engine at the club, I would say. Like, he's unbelievable the way he runs the line and scores goals, assists. Kudos again, he's another one. He's got an incredible engine on him. And I actually like where you've put him. I'd play him there still. I'd actually play him there. I'd play with that one holding player and then a box. I'd probably swap Paquetá out for a box-to-box, more of an engine. But I like Kudos in there. Emerson's nailed on for me. I know he had a poor end of the season, but he is nailed on. He's probably one of the best left-backs we've had.
He's been our best defender this season, hasn't he, really?
And then, Areola's going to be number one. I'm still 50-50 on him, but we don't. Keeper is this position where we don't want to have to worry about it, like going to find another number one. We really don't need that.
Well, it ain't a number one, but let's on a keeper for a moment because everyone sort of started blowing getting really upset because Wes Foderingham, who's left Sheffield United after they got relegated, was being linked to us, and everyone was going absolutely like mad. Why on earth are we getting a goalkeeper who conceded 100 goals or whatever it was for Sheffield United? But do you get that kind of, if we got someone like him in, do you get that kind of signing, or is that a waste of time, effort, and money?
I honestly think the Foderingham was just a homegrown one. He's an all right keeper, but he did look shaky at times. He had a couple of absolute worldy games for them, but their defence was terrible, weren't it, last year? So he was going to face a lot of shots. And at the end of the day, it's a number 3. I was talking to my mates about this, and I don't really get that signing, but I said it fulfills a homegrown, which we need to do, and he's going to be he's the backup's backup. When's he going to play? Unless someone gets injured. But he's played.
We're unfortunate enough to have both goalies injured.
Yeah,
I mean, there was another one linked today, or at the weekend, Asmir Begovic. I thought he was about 85 years old, but he's only 36.
Yeah, he has been around a while, hasn't
he? He's been around a long while, and I got it wrong because when I did a show the other day, I said, I get the Fodering one because Foderingham link because he's a homegrown, like you said. Yeah. And then I said, oh, well, Begovic, he's not homegrown. I got that completely wrong.
Yeah, I think because he's been in the country,
isn't he? Quite young.
Yeah, he's been in the country long enough, so he would qualify as a homegrown player.
Of the two, to get a third choice, I mean, people are saying, why not just have our young keepers in? But of those two, if we were going to get one of them, which one would you prefer?
I think Begovic is a better keeper than Foderingham. But I haven't watched Begovic in a few years. He was pretty decent when he was at Stoke. Was he at Stoke, wasn't he, for a while? And Chelsea and
I've lost count of the number of teams.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a number 3. I'm not really like it's one of them, mate. It's just like it's just to fill. It's just to fill a quota in it. It's that.
Or as Danny Boy said, Zuma could be rush goalie.
Yeah, well, with his knees, he ain't jumping far, is he?
Other players in there. I mean, we talked about. I'll come to those in a minute. Other players that may be given a second chance. By the way, Aaron, you asked a question: do we have any insurance, etc.? Unfortunately, not in situations like this with Paquetá. That's it. If he gets done, that's the money gone. But what about other players in the squad? There's still decisions to be made. We know that Benrahma went to Lyon and had a pretty half-decent second half of the season there. Helped them get into Europe. The irony, the massive fucking irony. When we needed extra players to sort of help us push on, he goes off to France and helps a team that were languishing down the bottom of the
Honestly,
league.
mate, January was such a mess. We made such a mess of January. It ruined the season. Ruined the season, January did.
What about these players? Do they get? I mean, would Lopetegui see anything in players like these two? Would they stay to make up the numbers?
I think Benny deserves another go. Look, he clearly didn't get on with Moyes, right? Because when it was all announced, Moyes was gone. Benny was on like Insta liking loads of stuff. So like they clearly didn't get on, and I've always said to you as well, Stel, I don't think he's an out and out left winger. I don't actually think he's a winger.
He's more number 10.
Yeah, I think he's trickier and he looks better when he plays inside because his crossing is terrible. Yeah, I think the cross for Bowen's goal is probably one of the only crosses I've ever thought, oh, that's a really good cross. But he had so much time and he didn't have to beat anyone.
So it was almost like a chip, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's like I don't know. I don't like him out on the wing. But if you brought him back and he could, rotate and play in the 10, players are going to get more chances off the bench. This is the thing. So, Cornet is a hard one to judge because the fan base doesn't know what he can do. Do you know what I mean? Like because he came in. He had that really good game against Chelsea where he had the goal that was disallowed. Yeah. And then he got injured. He was out for ages. He came back, had a couple of good games, got injured, out for ages. And then after that, it was just like Moyes he fell out of Moyes' favour. And then he just played like 5 minutes here, 3 minutes there. And it was like, no one really knows what he can do anymore. It's a bit of a weird one, Cornet. It's like, do you take the money if you can get it? And put it towards someone else. I really don't know. I actually feel really sorry for him, to be honest, because he came in and
because when he got in the games that he got to play, I think it was Sheffield United away, he scored a goal. He looked quite lively, and then that was it. It was. I mean, we keep hearing the stories about his injury being more serious than there's been let on. Apparently, in the January window, there was rumor that he was, there was interest from Everton and other teams, etc. And apparently, when they saw his medical record and details, they went, no way. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see if he stays. I've got a feeling, given that the number of players we need, and someone made a comment, you probably get the squad you need in 2 or 3 windows. These two guys will probably be kept. I think, they're going to be given that assurance. You'll get a bit more game time than you did under the last regime, etc., etc. And they're not bad players to have coming off the bench, are they?
No, I don't think they are. Benny, especially, I think Benny's probably a better impact player than he is a starter. Someone's made an interesting comment there about like he was very good at Brentford when he was in playing for them on the wing and stuff. But no disrespect, he was playing in the Championship. You're afforded if you're tricky down there, you are afforded a bit more time. Yeah, it's a bit more physical down there, but he's going to beat them players. I don't think people understand that jump to the Prem is massive. The defenders he's coming up against, they're wiser to it. But I would give Benny a chance. I really would give Benny another chance. He's not the worst player, and he might not be a starter because we're looking for a new left winger. That's one of the positions that was highlighted. So I'd imagine we're going to bring in a new starting left winger. So he isn't going to start out there, but as a rotational option, because we need so many players. So I can't see too many going unless we get really good money for them.
And hearing, I mean, you set that up pretty nicely because when it comes to getting good money for players, the big fear, like you said earlier on, the big fear, we all thought Paquetá was going to be the player to go for £80 million, and then we used that money plus whatever was available. Apparently, at one point, the transfer kitty would have been anything like £180 million. Now that 85 million is gone, but of course, people are speculating. Does that mean, especially with us being linked to so many left-sided players or so many attacking wingers on both sides? Sorry. People are now asking, does that mean that one of these two are likely to go in this window?
Bowen won't. He's going to cost too much money. It's going to cost too much money. And Newcastle can get linked with him as much as they want. They are not in a position to spend that amount of money. They're just not. No. They've openly said they're probably going to have to sell one to be able to do business. Because this is the trouble. you can have owners with all the money in the world, but because of the way the financial regulations are in the Premier League now, clubs can't operate, like they got the richest, they've technically got the richest owners in the league, but he can't spend his money the way he wants to because there's rules that clubs have got to abide by. Newcastle just physically can't get it done. You got to think the Bowen signed, what was it? A 7-year deal, 6-7-year deal.
Yeah.
So you got to buy that out. Yeah. And you've got to pay a fee for the player. But Bowen is an unbelievable player. He's arguably one of the best wingers in the league, in my opinion. He's everyone is always singing Saka's praises and how amazing he is. Every season, Bowen's numbers are similar, if not better. So but he doesn't get the praise, and he doesn't because he plays for us. Because I guarantee if he played for City or if he played for United, Liverpool, whatever, everyone would be talking about Bowen with the way he plays. They genuinely would, but it's just because he plays for us. No one really talks about him.
Does he get in the final England squad? I mean,
I think they should take him, but Southgate don't know how to use him, though, in my opinion. But
I found it interesting. But you take him. I did watch the game. I watched certainly the first half, and I can't remember who the number 3 was for England playing on the right side of defence. Kept going into Bowen's space, and Bowen almost wasn't, didn't really get a look in. And then when Southgate changed it round, I can't remember whoever it was, the number 3. Went over to the left side, and all of a sudden Bowen had a whole load of space, and he had a completely different game in the second half.
Yeah.
And you're what you just said about Southgate not knowing how to use him properly. That's evidence of that. When he was finding that the right back overlapping him and getting into the space that Bowen should have been in. In the England game tonight. But
there's so many good players in that England team up top.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be hard to get in. But I think you take him though. You do take him. But I think Bowen's 100 million plus, and I just don't think clubs have got it. I just don't. And like the thing is as well, the rumours of like kudos to Liverpool because obviously Arne Slot's gone there. We know he's a big fan of his, but the what's name? His release clause isn't active till next summer, so we're well within our rights to ask for more than 85 million. Liverpool don't. When Liverpool usually have more than one need, they can't do what other big clubs do, where they'll go and pay a big fee for one player because they usually need 2 or 3. So I can't see Liverpool paying 95 million because I genuinely think kudos is well worth that.
I think that's what we'll ask for.
I just can't see. I can't see them paying it, mate. I can't see. I just can't. Clubs outside of the Premier League, maybe, but I just can't see Premier League clubs going crazy, because of the financial, regulations that are in place.
That most of the clubs have got are quite, Aston Villa, Newcastle, you've mentioned, Liverpool, Chelsea.
Premier League
have got to sell to actually. Balance their books, etc.
The Prem are in danger of, 10, 15 years ago, La Liga had all the best players, because the Prem had introduced new financial rules and whatever back then, and then they relaxed them a bit. The Prem's in danger at the minute of losing all its best players because these financial, regulations they've got in place dictates how much money you can spend on wages and how much, you can spend. And, unfortunately, it's been put in place to protect those big 6 clubs because the Prem famously just want the big 6 to do well. They don't want anybody knocking on the door. And, the fact that Villa did last year, they probably don't like that. So, but it is hard because I just don't think the best players can come to the Prem like they used to because of, the way that the clubs have to operate now. So, kudos going for 90 million, Bowen going for 100 plus. I just can't see it happening. Not to a Premier League club anyway. And I don't think any of the really big clubs outside need players like this at the minute.
So that means we should be, they should be both be there next season. And
I would imagine so.
These are the players we build around, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we go back to that. And kudos I put on the right in the middle there of a 3 because I my understanding is, and I think you told me this as well, probably the last game I saw you at was Lopetegui likes 3 technically gifted midfielders. He likes them with pace. He likes that they can defend as well as get forward, etc. And we're going to talk about, when we go on to some of the links that there are for West Ham, we're going to talk about one player I know that you would love to have at West Ham, who you think will fit perfectly into this setup. But you could even put Kudus as the false number 9 that Lopetegui likes to play as well.
Yeah, quite easily. Yeah, I think he could do the job. You know, he can actually hold the ball up a lot better than people think as well. Like, usually he loves
better than Bowen up front.
Keep
Bowen on the right.
I prefer Bowen out wide, because I think when he drifts in, he's so much more dangerous than when he has to, kind of try and split defenders. But then under Lop, it could be different, because he might want his striker to play differently. It's hard, isn't it? It's like Moyes liked a striker that could hold the ball up, back to goal, play people off, and then run in, whereas we might do it differently. It'd be interesting, really, to see how it changes, especially at the physical way we go about the game and the way us fans take to it. It is going to be very strange.
And Wiggy's still going to moan regardless.
We'll still be there listening to him moan.
So let's go on to some of the players that we're linked to, because there's a plethora of them. It's quite amazing, really, that the window hasn't opened. For those of you who have joined late, we've already discussed about Guilherme and how the deal apparently is not dead. It's still on, and apparently papers are being exchanged. And the next thing that's going to happen is that he'll come over to England and have his medical. So let's see what happens in the next few days. But in complete contrast to the next Brazilian superstar, wonder kid, etc., we've got Wilfried Zaha. What's your view on this link? Good or bad? Because I can't make my mind up.
I said to you, didn't I, the last home game, you went to me, the Zaha's come up again, especially now Moyes is going, blah, blah, blah. And I remember saying to you, I'd have him all day long. The thing is with Zaha, look, whether you like him or not, because I don't think it's that people particularly dislike the footballer. I think they dislike the play acting and the character. Yeah.
But then he'll be our bastard rather than
exactly right, exactly. And the thing is, what a lot of people don't know as well is Zaha does a lot for the community outside of football. Like he gives away 30% of his wages to charities every month and stuff like that. He's actually, like, behind the scenes, he's actually a nice guy. Which is when he steps on the football pitch, he's just he's just one of those players. But the thing you get with Zaha is a tricky winger that knows the league. Eye for goal, he's a good player.
An eye for a penalty.
Yeah, he's a good player. Like, I think that sometimes our teams can be a little bit too honest. I
agree with you there, because I remember when Moyes came back. He talked about he wants his players to stand up. He doesn't like the falling over. I'm surprised he's allowed.
So look, I don't want role playing. No, I don't want. Like when Paquetá does it, the theatrics are a bit too much. I don't want that. But if you can buy a free kick, Grealish is one of the best in the game at buying free kicks. Putting your body in the right place. You've got to do that. Because that's football. We've been very good from set pieces over the last few years. Hopefully that will continue. So if you've got a player in the team that can do that. See, sometimes I don't think pace is the be all and end all now in the Prem, because it's so technical with the way teams pass the ball. But then it really depends how we play, doesn't it? But he might come in and not necessarily be a starter, but he would be a good squad player, wouldn't he? He would fulfill a homegrown as well. So
that's another point. See, this is why I'm kind of questioning. This is why I can't make my mind up over Zaha. And even people in the chat are kind of split on this. Some saying it's good, some saying it's not so good. I think at 31, he turns 32 in November, I think. So if he came to us,
I just think he comes in as an option. I don't think he comes in as a star player, as someone who's going to play week in, week out. I think he comes in as a really good option. He can be relied upon. He knows the league. And I think that's important sometimes.
And this is perfectly, as David said, hate Zaha with a vengeance. if he signs for us, we'll love him. You know,
yeah, I was exactly the same. But he was one of those players through the years. I always looked at him and I thought, I'd love him at West Ham.
Yeah,
Love it if we signed him.
Exactly. But we hated him as well at
Yeah.
the same time. But we all admired his skill, his you know, the way he played the game. You know, we were in a way sort of kind of jealous, weren't we? You know, because we didn't have him at West Ham.
Yeah.
So Zaha is an option, and then we've got like we go to extremes because the next one we talked about it just before we came on. You went, I'd love to get him. Yeah. Jota Silva from Vitória Guimarães in Portugal. Like he's got a release. Look, he's in his last year of his contract. He's got a release clause of 17 million, but clearly in the last year you can't demand even 17 million though. Would not be a bad price to pay
for what he will bring as well. It's not a lot of money, mate. You know, he's what I like about him is he's a versatile winger. He plays left wing, but can play up top. He's good aerially. He'll win aerial duels, which not a lot of wingers do. You know, usually they're just pacey. But like Bowen's quite good in the air. So you can imagine having two wingers that are like decent in the air. He's pretty good, tricky, quick. I like him. I do really like him. I think he'd be a really good signing for us.
Yeah, I won't lie. I kind of, you know, you don't always notice players in other leagues, etc. It's bad enough trying to keep up with the players in the Premier League for me. But, you know, when I've sort of read about him, I was like, oh, yeah.
And notoriously as well, like those players, you know, those Portuguese wingers, they come in and they do all right. They tend to take them quite well. So, yeah. You have to think about these things as well. And plus, with the plethora of Brazilian players coming in, speak the same language.
Well, I was going to say, if you can't get a Brazilian player, go for the Portuguese player. Now, here's the interesting thing, and I laugh because I did a show this morning and kind of almost laughing when I said it myself. You know, we apparently have already discussed and agreed a 4-year deal, but we've yet to approach the club to actually talk to the player. So that's the sort of stuff that comes out that makes you go, how can that be? How can we have agreed a 4-year deal? We haven't even asked to even speak to the player.
Do you know what? You see that a lot now though, didn't you? Like you see, not just us, but like you'll see like this club's spoken to this player already. They've agreed a deal in principle. Back in the day, that was called tapping up.
That's tapping up. Exactly.
That's what it was back in the day. But it seems like it's the done thing now. So it's weird. It is weird. Yeah. You see it all the time.
So what do you know? Because this is where I rely on you. Because I won't lie, I only just heard about him when we got linked to him the other day, so I don't know much. But you know, he's versatile. He can play up front.
He's basically what we're looking for: right-footed left winger, likes to cut in, eye for goal. But as you can see, 19 goals, 11 assists. He's not just going to score the goals; he's going to set them up as well. He's pacey, which is something we need. He's very pacey, but what I think is the bonus with him is not only can he play left wing, but he can play up top, and will dominate in the air, which is just ticks all the boxes for us.
Because when I see him, when I've watched a few clips, he looks slight. He doesn't look like he's a big bulky lad or anything like that. And you kind of ask yourself, oh, would he be sort of the physicality of the Premier League? Would it be something that he'd be accustomed? Can he acclimatise?
Yeah. See, the thing is, you're never guaranteed on any signing, are you?
No, true.
With things like that. So, you know, like when we signed Paquetá, I didn't realise we were signing a player that was going to kick lumps out of everyone. I thought he was going to be one of these fancy Brazilian attacking players because that's what I'd seen. But then he came in and he used to track, and he tracks back and he tackles and he puts a foot in and, you know,
gets yellow cards.
Dodgy
one.
But you know what I mean? But he was more than what we were expecting.
Absolutely, that surprised me.
So sometimes, because I actually think the bigger risk, I don't think Jota Silva's a risk. I think the biggest risk is the young Brazilian.
Because it may work, it may go.
Because he's 18, he's only played 30 odd games, and it's like, well, he's early in his career, and is he coming in to start or is he coming in as a backup? What's the deal? Because it's a lot of money.
Because for me, you know, Guilherme is the sort of player that will be the backup, you know, and you know, you give him a season in the Premier League, you know, getting acclimatized to it, etc. And then if and when we do sell Kudus, he's the sort of player that you would expect a season at the
I
Premier
understand
League.
the link because he's very highly, thought of in Brazil. He's going to be one of those players that is going to be highly sought. Sort of. Weren't there like 9 clubs apparently in for him? When we were first linked, I think there was 9 clubs rumored, obviously.
Well, for Guilherme,
yeah, there was 9
well,
clubs.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool, when I was doing the research on it, apparently Liverpool had created a massive dossier on the player, and apparently they were ready to swoop.
Yeah.
And Liverpool were and then Arsenal have been linked to him, and a number of other clubs. Primarily, I don't know about Europe, but I dare say, the big clubs in Europe, like the Real Madrids, etc., are probably interested in him as well. But Liverpool was the one that seemed quite prominent in wanting to sign him. So when I started to hear that we're interested and we're getting quite advanced in his signature, I thought, well, something's going on, and that's the Steidten touch, isn't it? People are questioning Steidten, but that is the look what he. All right, I know we were linked to Kudus and Alvarez and all these other players before Steidten arrived, that they were long-term links, but Steidten that got it over the line, isn't it? And apparently, the way he smoothed Guilherme and his family about this is the place to be, West Ham's the place to be to develop your career, and the fact that we're agreeing to a 20% sell-on clause means that we know. Now,
we know we're going to get good money if yeah.
But we know we're not going to keep him forever, and we'll make big money on. He might be the next £100 million player. Because if we do sell him and there's a 20%,
and it's something, the fan base has got to get comfortable with. We're not just buying these players to develop them and keep them for 10 years because it's just not the way a club our size. People don't like it when I say that, but a club our size can't operate the way that the big 6 do. Because financially we're just not on their level. So to be able to develop, look at Bayer Leverkusen. He did it there. You buy these players in cheap, you sell a couple on for money, then you buy better players in, and slowly you build this really good team off the back of these youngsters that you develop for 2 years, and you buy and sell and whatever. The 20% clause they're putting in there tells me that Tim is comfortably thinks he's going to sell that player for 3 times the amount we buy him. Because he's willing to give away 20%. I think he knows he's going to sell him, as long as it works. But again, it's every transfer is a risk. So he's got to be willing to take a loss if it doesn't work.
So with that, there's another player that we're linked to, and initially when I heard about this, I was told this is lazy journalism only because Lopetegui's worked with him before, and that of course is Sullivan and Steidten. Now, ever since we played Seville, we were linked to him back then. And I kept saying to myself, well, where's the quality that I'm not seeing? And I'm like, apparently he's gone through a rough patch, and apparently the season that he's just finished, he's been on top form again. What do you make of this one? I mean, is this the sort of player that, again, because he knows Lopetegui, is he someone that we should be pushing for?
I think that's why the link is there, because he played some of his best football under Lop. But I just don't know. I really don't know if it will work or not. I just don't. Because
is he suited to the Premier League?
Well, sometimes I watch him and I think, Jesus, he's good. And other times I watch him and I think, how did you get into football?
Hot and cold.
Yeah, he really blows hot and cold. He's a bit of a strange one. He started last season really well. Yeah, it's like, was it 7 in 5? I think something like that. He started really well, because I remember me and Cess were laughing about it because we were linked with him at the time. And Cess was always kept saying to me, "Oh, he scored again. He scored again." And we were laughing. And then obviously he's got linked to us again. And both of us been laughing about it again, because it's, he seemed to, what is it, for 3 years now? 3 or 4 windows.
3 years we've been linked.
Yeah, and it's just, it's either. I think the attraction is last year, the contract, so the fee's going to be lower. And I think it's the physics. I think he'll fit the style, because he knows the way Lopetegui wants to play football. And I do think he's physical enough to play in the Premier League. Whether or not he's going to be a 20-goal a season striker, I don't know. Jury's out on that one. But I think he could come in and do a job. We can't. Let's be really honest here. We can't rely on Antonio again.
We can't
to play 38 games.
Yeah.
So I know Lopetegui likes Antonio, but we cannot rely on, a 34-year-old winger turned striker to lead the line.
It's time, isn't it? It's time that we started to look beyond that. And I think as much. Look, I've got to be honest. I hold my hand up to with Antonio, how he did when he came back from injury in the season that just ended, because he was on fire. He was like a completely different player. He was good. He was getting involved. Whereas sometimes you look at Antonio, and the number of times we've said it, he looks knackered before he's even come on the pitch.
Yeah.
He looks
see, for me, Antonio's best role now at this stage in his career is last 10 minutes, when you need a bit of pace, a bit of strength, someone to bully the defenders, when they're tired in the game. If you're 1-1, you're trying to get something late on. I think that's his best role now. I just don't. You can't be starting him. We've now that Moyes is gone, we need to get a striker. Moyes just doesn't know how to use strikers. He didn't know how to use them at Everton. So, it's not like it's anything new. He always turns a midfielder or a winger into a striker. He did it with Tim Cahill. He did it with Arnautovic. The list goes on. It's mad. The geezer just doesn't know how to use strikers.
And if he stayed on, Bowen would have been. He wouldn't have bought a striker. Bowen would have just been pushed up front, wouldn't he? And
it's just wasted. But he wouldn't be the worst signing, but would he be the best? Is he the striker we need? I'm not sure. Not sure. No,
he doesn't inspire you. So if we went for someone like I've lost his name, Jota Silva instead, and used him as a sort of like, used him up front, mix it, Kudus playing up front every now and again, Jota Silva playing up front again every now and again, maybe even someone like Zaha. Would they be your preferred options rather? Because En-Nesyri is the only out and out. Well, there is another out and out striker that we're linked to, but En-Nesyri at the moment is the only real out and out striker that we're linked to. Would you prefer maybe someone like Jota Silva to come in?
Yeah, but see, I would prefer an out and out striker
rather than buying.
No, see, I would prefer an out and out striker because it's the hardest thing to do in football is score goals, and that's why you pay the money for strikers. And they finish better than anyone. Even, wingers are good players, but like they're not on the level of strikers. Like, you get a proper out and out striker. One of our biggest problems is putting chances away still. It has been for ages. So we've got to deal with that. And I like Jota Silva, but he's a better left winger. Although he's versatile and can play up front, he's a better left winger in my opinion. So
and that takes me to someone else we've been linked to the other day.
So I like Tammy, but
I'm giggling, but I, in a way, do as well.
But he's coming off the back of that ACL.
Yeah, well, this is it. He's missed most of last season with a cruciate ligament.
Yeah, so none of us really know where he's at.
Yeah, he returned. He returned at the end of the season. Returned in April. Scored a few goals, but I can't profess to knowing just how he got on. It looks like Roma want to make their money because they want to make their money. They want to sell him, or they need to sell. Let's put it another way. They need to sell, and he's one of the players that could possibly go. But they're going to be asking for a lot. This is it again with the. I'm going to come to another player in a minute because he's got a hefty price tag on him. They're going to be looking for 30 million plus, and the fact that he's just come off the back of a very serious injury puts a little bit of doubt in your mind. And the old West Ham would have gone and bought him.
Don't get me wrong.
Regardless of the injury.
ACLs are not, career-ending injuries anymore. They're not. But it's a serious injury, So it's going to have an effect, isn't it? So you've got to see, has he rehabbed it properly? Has he come back from it? Is he going to be the striker that he was? Because like I say, it's not career-ending, but it's still going to leave something there. It's going to leave a mark, isn't it? So, but I do like Tammy, and he was playing some of his best football for Roma up until he got injured. Yeah. So, 26 as well. He's young, and it's homegrown again. He's a good player.
Would you pay that sort of money for a player like that? Or would you rather use the money on other players? I mean,
the thing is, still 30 million for a striker is nothing. In today's game, 30 million for a striker isn't actually a lot of money. So, but it's above my pay grade. I know about footballers, but when it comes to the actual ins and outs of transfers, who's worth what, it is hard, isn't it, to really tell if he is worth that or not. the thing is, if he still played in England, we'd be expected to pay 50, 55.
True.
He's only available for 30 because he's playing in Serie A.
I mean, there are other strikers linked. Ivan Toney is linked to us, but again, he won't come cheap. Well, just your argument there, because he's playing in England, they'll probably want 40, 45 million for him.
Yeah, easy.
I mean, do you have in your mind a striker that we should be going for?
No, I don't, mate. Because I don't know. I think if we had European football, it might have been different. But it's harder to attract players when you haven't got the pull of Europe. So, no, I don't know. Yeah, I know you and Wiggy said to me at the end of the season you thought Ivan Toney would be the one, but I just think the fee's going to be too high.
Yeah, I think when I was thinking about, we're going to sell Paquetá, that's why I said we're going to get Ivan Toney. And my argument about him was that Tony's 28, 29 years old now. 29, I think he's turning. And for the money that Brentford are going to want for him at 29, teams like Liverpool and Chelsea, etc., are going to go, that's too much for.
Yeah. But I see the thing is with Toney as well, I don't like his attitude. He's always putting himself out there and kind of talking down the club he plays for and trying to engineer moves. And I don't like that. You could just imagine us signing him and then within 6 months he'd be trying to engineer a move, because he's an Arsenal supporter, isn't he? So that's who he wants to play for. So yeah, I don't know about Toney. I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, strikers is such a hard one, mate. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're going to be.
I like Boniface at Leverkusen, but then he ain't going to come to us. He's got Champions League football to look forward to.
He's got Champions League, and I know people are going, "Oh yeah, absolute dead cert," because he was Steidten. Was he? I think he was a Steidten signing when he went to Leverkusen. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
I still like the Canadian lad in.
Oh, Jonathan David.
Yeah, Jonathan David. I still really like him.
Yeah. And there's nothing that, interestingly, that's been rumored for a couple of seasons, and that's gone quite quiet.
Yeah,
maybe that's the sort of thing. The ones that have gone quiet are the ones that they're likely to get.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk about another player that's quite expensive, because when it goes back to our centre backs, this is the link again. Another link with Lopetegui. English born, he feels the homegrown, etc. Good in the Premier, he knows the Premier League and so on and so forth. But yet again, that price tag, £40 million.
No, say you get 35 for a Gerd. Yeah, I'm pushing it there because that is probably high end. But say you get your money back, because didn't we pay about 27 for him?
For a Gerd?
Yeah.
No, mate, we paid about 35 with add-ons.
Oh, we paid about 30. Okay, so say you get your money back. And it's 40. You've only got 5 million technically, So I know there's a lot more to it, like agents' fees and all that stuff, but it's doable if you sell one. But then if you sell one, you still need one because there's such a need for centre backs at the club at the minute. So, but I like Kilman. I like Max Kilman. I think he's a very good player. I think he's really good. I think he'd suit us in the new way we're going to play. He's good on the ball, good in the air. I think he's a good.
And he's left-footed, which is rare.
And we need that. We need that because I just think that balance. When you don't have that balance, we noticed it last year when a Gerd was out and he weren't playing, and Zuma was playing on the left-hand side, and it's like he just doesn't have a left foot, does he? And I do think you need that, get that balance right at the back.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because those are the two areas, our priority is centre backs and strikers. And in a way, they could probably be the most expensive signings that we have to make this summer. If we end up having to pay 30 odd million for a striker and 40 million, 35, 40 million for a centre back, if we've only got a budget of 120 million, there goes 70 odd million straight away.
I think this is why. It's interesting, right? If you look at all of the attacking players that we're going for, they're cheaper. Like Zaha, 10 million, Jota, 17 million. They're a bit cheaper, right? And I think it's because Tim knows there's 3 areas at the back because our defence is awful. It has been awful. Conceded the most goals in a Premier League season last year.
And outside of the 3 teams got relegated,
which is mad because Avram Grant's team was mentally shit, and yet Moyes has managed to like one up him and concede more goals, which I can't get my head around. But we need defenders, so I think that is where the money's going to get spent. I think we are going to have to shell out, 30-40 million on one, maybe 25 million on another, and then a right back, like whatever you're going to spend on that. But I actually think they're more important, because you bring in someone like Benny back. Yeah. So say you didn't get that left winger, you've got someone, and you've got a Cornet. They're not the best, but they could probably do a job. I do think the defence is such a key area for us to get right in this window, because we cannot have another season where we're leaking goals. Like we did last year.
That's what really, I mean, as much as the football wasn't exciting to watch, that's what really did us, because apparently we scored, last season we scored one of the highest number of goals in the season. It's just that we conceded the highest number of goals at the same time. So scoring isn't a problem, but it's stopping them. I think we only had 3 or 4 clean sheets last season.
It's like everyone always was, banging on about how good Areola was last year, and his shot stopping is amazing, and he a good keeper. Keepers shouldn't have to work that hard.
He worked hard.
Keepers shouldn't have to work that hard. Like it's when you see the stats, it's like most saves, and I think it was like Foderingham, someone else, and then it was like Areola, third on the list, and it was like, how is he having to make the most saves? That's mad.
Yeah. Sean's just mentioned Kadioglu, and I find this intriguing, because my understanding is he's primarily a left back.
I will be honest, I don't know a lot about him.
No, and I don't either. So I'm going into dangerous territory here. I mean, I don't know a lot about anything.
Turkish football is one of them that I don't really pay too much attention to. So like, I don't really know too much, but I know Fenerbahce obviously are in a bit of a, having a bit of a shit show.
And yet another team that's in financial difficulty. And apparently the president came out and said he's not going to go on the cheap. And apparently Kadioglu was apparently agreed that he could go. He's got 1 year left on his contract, and agreed that he can. 2 years left. Sorry, he can go on. But now that the president of Fenerbahce is saying, you can go, but you're not going for anything less than 25 mil.
But Mourinho's just gone in. So is he going to really want to sell him if he's one of their best players? Which it sounds like he is, because of the fee attached and whatnot. And a lot of people, the people that know about him, are saying like they'd like him to sign and whatever. It's going to be difficult. Mourinho, that's a tough job there for Mourinho, because we all know about how he likes to go in and shake things up and sign players, and he wants his way as well in the transfer window. And they're a club that's kind of in a bit of trouble at the minute, aren't they? Like the fans were like protesting and all sorts this season. So
imagine them selling their best players. That's going to be a nightmare. Yeah. Someone mentioned about Guirassy. I haven't put a slide up about Guirassy. What do you know about Guirassy?
So obviously he had an unbelievable season for Stuttgart. They finished second, didn't they? And they just got Champions League football. But he's got a £17 million release clause. But the last I read was Dortmund room for him.
Right. So again, see, this is the thing. When I look at the transfer rumours, I sort of the first thing I ask myself is, where would they be playing their football next season if they stayed?
But I tell you something. He wouldn't be a bad signing though. He'd be a good signing for us.
Right.
Because he's a pacey striker. 28 and 28 he got last season. And it would have been more, but he missed a stretch, injured. He went on some mad run where he had like 12 in 8. And then he got injured and he missed a bit of football.
But if a player like him is going to be playing Champions League football, European football next season, the chances of him coming to West Ham.
Exactly. I know obviously when there's a clause like that, a release clause, any club can activate it. Yeah. So as long as we offered 17 million, then there's an obligation for like his team to talk to us. But he doesn't have to accept. Just because we've activated that clause and it's accepted by his club doesn't mean he has to accept our terms and come and play for us. And funny enough, like one of Stuttgart's players early on in the season said, we're the second best team in the Bundesliga. And it was quite early on, and everyone laughed at him. They ended up finishing second. you know, like ahead of Bayern Munich, and so he was proved right. And they are a really good team. Like their manager was one of them I thought we might have looked at, to be honest with you, because I thought he could have done a good job for us. But you know, they're going to be playing Champions League, and are they going to want to really lose their best players? I would not be surprised.
Is that player going to want to come to? All right, it's the Premier League, but will he give up Champions League?
I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to work on new terms right now to secure that striker, because without them 28 goals, do they get Champions League football? So they're going to need him, aren't they? So like it's a difficult one. I think I actually like. I watch a bit of the Bundesliga. I quite like it. Like it's one of the foreign leagues we get on Sky, isn't it? So I tend to watch a fair bit of it. But yeah, I was impressed with what I see from him. Like he's a really good striker.
And he'd make it in the Premier League.
I think he would. I think he'd be all right. But he's not young though. He's like 28, so he's not like young. He's 27, 28. So. That's not old either. He's probably in the prime of his career at the right stage. But
it's when you buy a player and you want a bit of sell on as well, you know, it's maybe not going to happen. Don't know. I'm going to go on to a player that I know you love. Actually, no. Before I do that, one more winger, because I think this one's intriguing. Is we've been linked to is Marcus Edwards. Now I've been reading up on him. And I know we've been linked to him before, but his background is quite intriguing. English-born. He was on Spurs' books for a number of years. They couldn't make head or tail of him, and they ended up releasing him. And he went to Portugal for a new start. Went to Vitória Guimarães, I think, initially on a free. But I don't understand how this worked out. And maybe because he was still quite young, that Spurs kept a retainer on him, like I think they own something like 35% of his rights, economic rights. And so Guimarães ended up selling into Sporting. And there's talk about him. It's interesting. This is under Amorim. He's been playing for. He's not had the best of seasons, and there's now talk of him maybe coming back to English football. He's the last of the wingers that I've got on my list at 25 years of age, and there's a release clause of 60 million. But,
the problem, his problem is he's lightweight.
Right.
That's his problem. He's quick, skillful, but he is lightweight. I think it's hard on it because he was released from Spurs when he was quite young. But I think that Spurs obviously identified that maybe the physicality weren't there. I think that's the issue. I think that could be the problem. But we've been linked with him. We've been linked with him a few times. So I know he's another one who kind of splits our fan base. Some are like, get him in because they see the trickery and they like the pace and whatever. But then you see the others like me who see. I think that personally, I just think the Premier League is so physical. It's not just about being able to do the defender one-on-one. Sometimes you've got to be able to hold the ball up. Sometimes you've got to be able to, battle down the line, compete. And I just don't think some wingers can do that. I think the physicality could be the issue.
He's represented England up to under 20 level, but that's been it. And apparently you can represent Cyprus. So go for it, mate. What better country to represent than Cyprus? I am kidding. I'm going to go on to a player that I know you love. And you would love at the club. By the way, people are saying that it's been tweeted now that the deal is done for Guilherme. Apparently now all the papers have been exchanged, and now he's apparently next thing is he's on that plane. So watch out for those photos on that private jet with Timmy Boy.
Oh man, I love them photos though.
They're great, aren't they?
It's like his little it's like his little thing he does, isn't it? His trademark.
Yusuf Fofana, go on, mate.
Engine room. That's what you buy. That's what you buy in. Because I think that's what our midfield lacks. I think our midfield has lacked for such a long time. It's just an engine. Someone that's going to go box to box in the tackle. He is primarily a ball-winning midfielder. He breaks play up and then, gets things going, but I think his game could stretch further than that. I think he could do more, and I just think that the balance. If you've got someone like a Fofana, you've got Alvarez. What I really want to see from Alvarez next season is out and out anchor man. Just sits in front of that defense, protects, and then he short passes into the midfielders and get attacks going. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see him, you know, I don't want to see Alvarez, you know, on the edge of the box with them long shots that go 90 yards over the bar, because it's just laughable. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think if you get this nice balance of Alvarez as the holder, you have a Fofana as a box-to-box who's going to get about. And then if you did want to play Kudus more central, like you'd put in your, you know, squad mock there still, he can play more of a free role. You know, he can float in that midfield because you've got two players that are, you know, capable of breaking up, you know, the play. And the good thing as well is if he wants to do a rotational thing with Alvarez, Fofana's good at sitting as well. So I just think that balance, I don't think the balance has been there. I don't want to slag Souček off, because like I actually think that he comes in for a lot of stick, Souček, but like without his goals last year, it could have been a lot worse.
Where would we
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I think my issue I have with Souček is he doesn't cover the football pitch. Like, he covers a lot of ground, but like, do you know what I mean? He can't take the ball and run with it, can he? He ain't gonna break the line. He ain't gonna, you know, battle through. And it's literally, he receives and he gets rid of it. It's hot potato with Souček, you know. So he does his best work in the box. Funny enough, Souček, even though he's meant to be more of a defensive player, but so I just think we need people that are a bit more technical on the ball in midfield. I think that's the point I'm making, and I think Fofana would do that. I know you've just put the comment up there that someone had said, you know, he's linked with Arsenal, whatever. But when we were linked with him before, he was linked with Arsenal, linked with Chelsea, you know. So like, and nothing came from it. So I just think it's one of them. It's a no-brainer. If you can get it done, it's a no-brainer. The other one in France, who I know you've probably not got a thing for, the other one in France that would be interesting to keep an eye on as well, because he's about to go into the last year of his contract, and I think he's as good, probably better than Fofana actually, is Kefren Turam. He's another one I think we should keep an eye on, because apparently he's rumoured to be going for 15 to 20 million, because he's only got that year left and he wants to leave. And he was linked with some really, really big clubs, but Nice didn't have the best of times of it, did they, last year? So I think that's affected his value a little.
The problem, and I'm going to ask the same question again as other players, is even though, I mean, I know people are going to question only 20 million, and someone just put, you know, apparently he's available for about 17 mil. And people are going to go, why? If he's that good, why? But that's because he's got the release clause in his contract. That's why that, you know, but being so good, is a French international, etc. Thuram, I think, is an international.
He's slightly younger as well, Thuram. I think Thuram's a year younger.
So the fact that we haven't got European football next season, would it make it an awful lot harder to
It will make it harder, because these players are good enough to attract the interest of European clubs. And it's about getting in there first. And it's about selling the project. And this is what Tim's good at. Well, this is what we're told he's good at. Anyway, it's what he's, you know, what we've paid him to do. So, you know, if we sign the right players, though, still, I genuinely think we qualify for Europe.
I actually do think, you know, people are asking what the next level is next season. As far as I'm concerned, the next level for us is to get straight back into Europe next season. Whatever competition it is, I can give a fuck if it's the Europa Conference League again. We had a great time during that, you know. And for me, I do think, you know, we're either going to get into Europe through winning a domestic trophy, or it'll be through our league position. I'm pretty certain of that.
Yeah. We can't be any worse. Do you know what I mean? And I think not. It sounds silly, because I said to you during the course of last season that I think that qualifying for Europe after doing so 3 years on the trot, like, that has to be the bar, that has to be the standard. And it might sound silly to some, you know, for me to be saying that about West Ham, but I think after you've proved that you can do it year on year, that has to be the level. Yeah. So the fact we didn't do it this season, then it makes sense why Moyes was let go, because he didn't fulfill the brief, in my opinion. Should have qualified for Europe, you know, especially when you look at how good, we weren't the best football, but where we were up until Christmas, inside the first 19 games, we were on the way to qualify for Europe again. So,
we were.
You know, and he failed, unfortunately, to like not do so. So I think that without Europe this year, you know, if we can sign the right players, we'll be in a better position to maybe do so. So it's about getting these players in.
I want to bring up a question that Aaron asked, because if we do go for the likes of Fofana, etc., does that mean that Downs gets sold and Potts won't get a look in? I mean, you know, I've got Downs in my squad. I don't think Downs is going to go.
Here's the issue, right? People are going to hate this because I know he's just had a really good season in the Championship. Downs ain't good enough.
Do you really think so?
He ain't good enough.
Yeah, because he's proven to be one of the best.
He's not good enough to start. I think he could do a job as a squad player, but I don't think he's good enough to start.
No, and I agree with you on that. I don't think he's good enough to start, but I do think he'll be good enough to be a squad player.
I have this argument every day with one of my mates who is on my case about, yeah, but look at him, like Southampton ticked whenever he played, he was really good, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I watched the Championship, I watched a bit of Southampton. He was a different player, but then, come on, the Championship and the Premier League are different. Yeah, you have to understand this. You know, look at the teams coming up; they're going back down. There's a reason for that. Different levels. Yeah, and he might have looked really good in that Southampton team, but will he look that good in our West Ham team? Is he better than Alvarez? No, that's the position he plays. So that's how you got to look at it. Yeah, and I know it's a squad game, but Downs ain't starting games. Downs ain't starting 20 games for me. Yeah, and if I'm looking at midfielders and I'm looking to improve my midfield, then you buy a midfielder and he's a backup. That's just how it is for me. Like I just don't, and so then it can't. Then you do this full circle, don't you? Does Downs want to sit on the bench, or does he want to go to Southampton for 15 million and probably play every game?
Well, in fairness to him, he didn't want to sit on the bench last season, and he asked.
Yeah, which is fair, and I respect that completely.
Yeah, and I respect that too.
But like you're coming back to sit on the bench, so
he will be. He will be. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And someone mentioned there's a good point. Get 20 million. Daniel said get 20 million for Downs or 15 million for Downs.
Yeah, that
pay that money to go and get Fofana or Thuram.
Because look what that does. Yeah. That improves the team.
Yeah,
that for me improves the team. Downs isn't like a terrible player, but he's not a starter. Yeah, whereas you buy a Fofana or a Thuram, they're a starter.
They're starting.
So that's how you got to look at it. It just improves the team. I see a lot of people saying he deserves a chance. I can't argue with that because he had a very good season. He was probably one of the best players in the Championship last year. Yeah. You know, in a good Southampton team, but he's not. But he ain't budging Alvarez. And unless you're going to play two holding midfielders, which I just don't think Lopetegui is going to do, he ain't starting games. If he was unhappy last year at not starting games, it's going to be the same scenario this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a decision to be made where Downs is concerned. He's either got to sign on to play in a squad role, or he's going to have to move to get regular football that he wants.
Yeah, and Lee's asking, so you're basically saying don't sign players from the Championship because they're Championship players?
No, that's not what I'm saying, because we signed Bowen from the Championship and he's one of the best players. But not every player is going to be able to make the jump. My point is Downs better than Alvarez? No, they play the same position. So Downs has got to be happy with sitting on the bench, and I don't think he's going to be. That's where we're at.
And when it comes to those players in that position, because I'd like to see Downs get a chance, but I think you're right. He doesn't take Alvarez's spot. And when you look at that midfield that I've got up there, you know, he's not going to be replacing Kudus or Paquetá any moment.
Exactly. So it's hard, isn't it? It's a difficult one. You know, if he was happy to sign on and play a squad role, great. Because I actually think he would be a good squad player. I just can't see Downs playing 20, 25 games a season. That's my point. Yeah. Like, you know, and it's not slander against all Championship players because we've signed some really good players from the Championship. We're looking at a centre-back in the Championship in Greaves. So, you know, but that's a really good point there. It stunts their growth. Sitting on the bench, not playing, you know, so...
What about our youngsters? I mean, you know, there was a big... And I've kind of played devil's advocate quite a few times over this because everyone kept having a go at Moyes, rightly or wrongly, kept having a go at Moyes because he didn't use the youngsters. And then... You know, the irony, and I know I'm gonna balance this statement I'm about to make. You know, the irony, he's one of the few Premier League managers that has blooded quite a lot of youngsters in his career, but I get that people are going to say, yeah, but he's only used a youngster for 5 minutes, or in games that aren't worth anything. If you remember the game against Zagreb a couple of seasons ago, the last game of the group stages where he had about 6 or 7 youngsters, etc. I get all that. Now, the devil's advocate bit is Moyes has been criticised for not using any of our youngsters in a proper manner, proper way. How are people going to feel if Lopetegui does the same thing? Does that say more about the youngsters?
I talk about this all the time, right?
Lopetegui and Moyes,
because of the way they changed the way that youth football is played. Yeah, these lads are only playing lads their age, right? Before, when it was reserve teams, there was a mix because it was senior pros coming back
from injury,
stuff like that. So there was a mix. So they got to mix it with seasoned Premier League players, right? They can't do that anymore because the under-21s play the under-21s, the under-19s play the under-19s, and so on and so on, right? So they're only playing lads their age. So unless they go out on loan and they play, more competitive football, in the lower leagues, they're not going to develop the way people think they are in the under-21s. Yeah, just because we've got a very dominant youth academy, doesn't mean they're going to dominate at the highest level, because they're only playing lads their size and their age. Yeah, so I always say, I think the slander for not using enough youth, I honestly, it's a boring one for me. It's a boring one because I don't think people are using common sense. I don't think they're thinking it through. I think they just see that the academy is doing well and they go, throw them in. But the academy is doing well because those lads are playing lads their age. If you get them lads to play Premier League teams, it's going to be different. It's going to be a different result. That's just
this is the thing, isn't it? Because we know that they've been superb. I said earlier in the show, our under-18s who won, the double, the under-18s Premier League and the Premier League FA, the FA Youth Cup. Just about every single one of them progressed they went from the under-18s all up to the under-21s last season. So they were still around, some of them were still up 17, 18 years old, and they've had an okay season. They finished, I think, second in the under-21s league. And that's pretty good. But as you say, they're playing against,
they're playing
the players.
Yeah.
So and we've got this whole thing about our history about the Academy of Football and stuff like that. And we want to see our youngsters develop and come through. We want to have our own, become regulars in the team, and is it going to be that our last regular is going to be Ben Johnson and Mark Noble and Declan Rice-ish? I'm going to class him as one of ours, but it's
going to sound, my statement now is going to sound mad, but when you think about it, it's not. It's actually easier to buy a player from Europe than it is to bring lads through the academy. It costs a lot of money.
Why are young players from Europe so much more considered than our young players? What's the difference?
I think the academies, I think the way they blood players in Europe is better than the way we do. The Premier League unfortunately got to a point where it was so dominant, that they could, the minute a Premier League club was linked with a player, that was where that player was going. It was so dominant. So we brought in all the best players. It's the point I was made earlier where I actually think we're entering a realm where developing players is probably going to be good for the clubs, but they're just not gonna, because you can go out to Europe and get players cheap. It costs a lot of money to keep these academies going and develop these young players. And I think because of the way youth football is set up, it's actually stagnated their ability to make the jump, because they're not playing. I think reserve football was better than this new system that they've got in place, because like I say, they were playing season pros, and seeing what it was like to play against them, whereas they can't do that anymore. And I want nothing more than to see these lads make the jump. Really, really do. I think that Alford are two that I've watched a lot. I really rate both those. Potts is another one. He had a really good season last year on loan. There's a few that I really would love to see make the jump. You know, Scholes looked really good early on, but he seems to have fallen off a little bit. And this is the thing. It's like, just because they can look good in one game doesn't mean they're going to be the next big thing. It just doesn't happen that often. It just doesn't anymore, unfortunately. Your Declan Rice's, like, they have to be, to make the jump, they have to be as good as Declan Rice, don't they? That's the thing. And Declan Rice is a world-class midfielder. You know, whether you like him or not, you know, after he left, he is a world-class midfielder. How many of these lads in the academy have the potential to be good Premier League players?
Well, I remember what you got to ask. Seeing a stat some time ago, I mentioned it a few times, is something, it's a really low percentage of academy players make it in the Premier League. I think it's something like 4%. I mean, really low percentage across.
It's not just us that does this still. You know, like, I think the only one I really think about that gives youngsters a chance is Liverpool. Klopp was very good at giving youngsters a go. Really, really good. But most of the youngsters he gave a go were ready. Do you know what I mean? Like, they played and they looked like they'd played before at that level.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about the way our setup at the club is. You know, the academy plays a different formation to the senior team under Moyes, or did under Moyes. Maybe Lopetegui might look at that and decide, you know, the 4-3-3. I mean, we play, the academy, I think, played a 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 or whatever. You know, Lopetegui's not going to play that. His preference is a 4-3-3. You know, so will he look at that and go, okay, let's look at the structure of the academy and make sure that they're in tandem with the senior team?
Well, on that point you've kind of made there, imagine how hard it was for them youth players to sit on the bench in a Moyes team and a Moyes set, to given all that freedom, playing that 3-5-2, and then you've got to go and play a low block. How hard is that for them youngsters? Completely different. It's a completely different, you know, style. So I think if you really want to develop these players the right way, they need the right loans to the right clubs.
Yeah. And this is the other thing that we do when we loan players out. You know, we always seem to loan players out to League One. No disrespect to League One, but we're loaning players out to League One. Sometimes they don't even get to play. The Callum Marshall loan last season was really disappointing, where he went to West Brom.
Yeah.
And I went, fucking great. We finally got a player that's been loaned out to a championship team. And then they only used him because, or they used him sparingly because they had all their strikers out injured. And the minute they came back, they all came back just after the transfer window shut, and he didn't get a look in, you know, and then they ended up sending back to us, you know. So the loans, we seem to be quite bad at who we loan our young players out to. I think, like you said, Potts had a really good time at Wickham. I think Kodua is another decent.
I'd like to see Potts go out on loan to a championship club this year.
Yeah,
see if he can do. See if he can. See if he can mix it in the championship, and then if he can, then you get your chance, because that's the next step. And that, I know that might seem like I'm kind of going back on what I was saying about, like, Downs obviously going to the championship, but I think it's different when you're developing a player, you know, from the academy who's 19. You know, Downs is like 25. He's actually not a young player. So I think there is a slight difference there. And I know someone's put there as well that, like, Arsenal, Chelsea, they kind of play youngsters. Chelsea bought all their youngsters. Chelsea bought all those youngsters.
Yeah.
Arsenal's
made a lot of money out of selling.
Yeah, Arsenal's got a good academy, to be fair to Arsenal. They have promoted a few players through. But here's the difference. Arsenal's academy is going to attract better quality of youngster than ours is. Yeah, so, like, that's say you've got to look at it. Their facilities are better than ours. Jesus Christ. We've still got porter cabins as our training facilities, for crying out loud. So,
who do you think out of the academy? People are saying about, obviously, Earthy's the last one. How did he look to you? Did you think
I like. Do you know what it is with him? Is his movement. He's got that about him. You can see he's got that elite level movement. Like his goal, his movement in the box was so good for that goal. You know, he's got that. Where he's going to struggle, he's not big. He's not big, is he? He even made that joke. I don't know if you see the video when Lopetegui was at the training ground, and Mark said, "Oh, he still ain't grown," from a photo they were looking at, and even he was joking, like, "Yeah, I'm not the biggest," kind of thing. But then
But then some of our best players in the world have been the
exactly. But he's played a few games, hasn't he? And
so.
I actually think he's looked quite good in all of them. But
Yeah.
from the players that I've watched, I really like whufc, and I like the fact he's been given a go. I like Alford. I think Alford's the one. I think he needs to have a loan to see what he can do on loan. And then Potts, obviously, a lot of people are talking about Potts because he had that little game in a European game, didn't he? And everyone was like, oh, he's very, very Declan Rice-esque, isn't he, with the way that he controls the midfield. So, we'll have to see. But there are a few, obviously. I want nothing more than to see players come up through the academy. You pay a lot of money to develop these players, so you want to see some return.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. I mean, it's been, we've gone through, for those who have joined late, we've gone through the players that could be leaving West Ham, gone through the players that we've been linked to lately. Of course, the latest news is it's dominated by the whole thing that's going on in Brazil at the moment, and some people are saying in the chat that we're about to get the young lad, Guilherme, over for a medical. Apparently documents have been exchanged. We kind of already touched on it, but what's your hope for next season? How well do you think? I know where we want to be. Both of us agree we want to be back in Europe, and I think that's possible.
I think that's just. I think the standards at the club have changed, in my opinion. There, I think that after the years of Europe, that should be that we should go into every season. We need to qualify for Europe. Because if you want to attract a quality of player, then you do need it, don't you? I think you do need European football. It makes it harder when you don't have Europe. So I think that has to be where we're at, and I think that probably has to be Lopetegui's aim to get into Europe. I'd love to see us have a proper cup run.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I would.
I'm like Nigel, and I want the FA Cup, mate.
I want a cup. I want to go to Wembley and win a cup. I want a day out of Wembley. It's only 3 stops away from me, but that don't matter. I want to go out to Wembley and have a day at Wembley and win, under the sunshine, a nice sort of warm, sunny Saturday or Sunday, or whenever they bloody well play the finals these days, and just have half that stadium full of West Ham.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to European football, if we ever get back to another European final, we don't get half the stadium. We get a quarter of it or a third of it or whatever. To have half the stadium in claret and blue, has been a long, long time. That would be great. And I think we've got,
the biggest thing I just want to see next year, mate. Obviously, as you know, I haven't renewed my season ticket. Circumstances have changed, but I'm still going to go over there as and when I can. But the biggest thing I just want to see, mate, is the improvement on the football. I just want to be entertained again.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
And that's what Wiggy keeps saying. Wiggy says, okay, I'm going to ask you the question I've asked others. So I've asked Wiggy, I've asked Paul, and few other people. Entertaining football, finishing lower half of the league, but we've been entertained. We've had fun with the games. They've been exciting. Would you accept?
But my take has always been I'd rather watch us have a go and lose 4-3 than Man City come to town and we just sit in and do nothing. And still I would rather us have a go and lose. Yeah. I hate that mentality. I hated that defeatist mentality. There were certain clubs where he would wave the white flag before balls even kicked, 2 days before the game. And you knew it was going to happen. That attitude stinks. So we need to get rid of that attitude. If we had finished where we finished this season, but we'd had a go, I wouldn't have moaned.
Yeah.
But there was too many occasions where we didn't have a go. We just accepted our fate kind of thing, So goals are fun, aren't they? But just when you're scoring them as well, I
want to mention quite quickly that Andy Irving, because someone else asked about, don't we have a deal with an Austrian club? I think it's Klagenturg, or whatever it is. And this is, we bought Andy Irving last summer and then loaned him straight back to the club. And apparently, that's the deal. We're trying to get some kind of relationship going with like a feeder club, that many clubs do. And apparently that was Steidten that did that. Good thing. I mean, Klagenturg is I think they finished 6th in their league, Austrian league. Is that the right thing to be doing? Surely we should be doing the same thing over in Brazil, so we don't have all this fuckery about trying to buy players.
Who knows, man? I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. It was such a weird transfer. I don't know. It's such a strange. He's never going to play for us.
No, well, this is it, because I half joked last week. I had Sean and Nigel on last week, and I half joked, well, we're all right for homegrowns because we'll get Andy Irvine. Then, of course, he's Scottish, and that don't count. So that shows how much I know about the homegrown quota. But you're right; it's not going to play for us.
Yeah, he's never going to play for us. So it's a bit of a weird one. That was a strange transfer. Like when it happened, I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of those. Who is he? Why?
Yeah. And it was the fact that we needed players, and he went straight out on loan as well. We were like, "What's this? What's going on?" Yeah, weird one that, but I don't know, mate. We need signings, and then
Are you confident we're going to get what we need in order to go strong?
I'm still. I hate the transfer window, mate.
Yeah,
because we've always been notoriously shit at it. We leave it to the last minute. We never ever get 100% what we need. Do you know what I mean? Like we always, under Moyes, it always felt like there was one or two. We were one or two short.
Yeah.
So.
And then when it came to January, we were about 4 short. I love this comment. Breaking: Sullivan has pulled out the deal using the money to buy his missus a new pair of. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't know what went on in Moyes' head in January windows. He made a real point about saying he hated them, he didn't like doing them. You know, I think at one point he actually did say they should not be, you know, we should get rid of the January window. But boy, oh boy, he put us, 2 seasons in a row. Well, not in a row, but 2 January windows when we were in Europa League, when we needed that boost. Yeah. Look how close we were the first time, Dan. You know, if only we brought in a player or two when we were, and you know, coming up against Eintracht Frankfurt, we would have won that. We could have been playing champion. Mind you, we wouldn't have won the Europa Conference. So you know, but
there is that.
Oh, well. All right, mate. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It takes a lot to talk an hour and 45 minutes, but I really, really appreciate it. You know, I hope you come on again soon, and that offer's still there. So whenever you do get that twitch of wanting to do a show, you know, because really appreciate it. And I'll catch you soon.
See you later, mate.
I hope you enjoyed that. That's the format now between now and when the new season starts. Of course, you know, that there's nothing else to talk about apart from transfers. And it's so, of course, the Euros are coming up. You know, whatever West Ham players are involved in any of the Euros or whatever other competitions. I think that the Copa America, I think it might be on. I think that's what, oh no, there's a competition in America that Alvarez is going to be involved in, and Paquetá as well. So we'll be talking about those as they come up when those games are on. But otherwise, it's going to be all transfers between now and then. But I can't do it on my own. There's going to have to be individuals that come on and sort of help me through it. So if you're interested to come on and talk about transfers and stuff like that, all you've got to do is send me a message on the West Ham Voice at gmail.com, and I'll be glad to do a show with the viewers to come on and have your say about the transfers, have your say about West Ham in general, etc. Your expectations, you know, what you think of Lopetegui, what you think of Steidten. I'm sure over the coming weeks, when we start seeing transfers happening, there'll be a lot more to discuss. So if you're interested, do send me a message on the West Ham Voice at gmail.com, and we can do a show with viewers. In the meantime, thank you all very much for watching. Really appreciated. Try to get as many comments in as... Actually, let me finish with a few comments before I do go. Infamy. Oh my God, imagine if we ended up with Borges instead of Kudus. Imagine. Do you remember the meltdown? Do you remember the meltdown at that time? Why have we not got Borges in? But I'm so glad we haven't now. Who else have we got here? David Stolp. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. Deal off, deal on. Apparently it's on. Off, on, off. Apparently it's on. A few pair of just get Jack and Dave to shave their heads. Turbo Gig. People that use selfie sticks need to take a good look, long look. Boom, boom. Who else have we got here? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, El Duderino. Thank you very much. Look, thank you all for watching. Really much appreciated. And I will see you all soon. There'll be another show coming up, I've no doubt, because we've got to get through all these transfer rumours. We've got to know about them before they disappear.